When I decided to get dressed for this video, I thought about the vibes. I thought about the Shiz University uniforms. I thought about the incredible costume design on Wicked that deserves a little bit of praise. And I, in that moment, decided to put on this shirt that I own, not remembering that it is quite noisy. So, if you were to hear rustling and clothing noises during this video, that is not a mistake on my part. It is simply a demonstration of how easily clothing can impact microphones. Recently, I went to the cinema to see Wicked, as have the rest of the human world, considering that Wicked made over $164 million in its opening weekend and is estimated to make close to $1 billion in the box office alone. There's been so much talk in my workplace over the last couple of weeks about this movie, about how it's been adapted from stage to screen, about the things that they took over into the screen and the things that they left behind, the things that they changed for the movie. The pacing has been a big conversation in that. The thing that got me the most excited, naturally, was talking about the sound and how they made this movie. Most specifically, the fact that the cast in the movie sang live on set. For those who are new here and would be confused as to why I give a shit about how they sing on set in a movie, my name is Monique. I have worked in live production in many different roles in many different areas of the industry in the last 10 years. In the last 4 years in particular, though, I have been working on large-scale commercial musicals, such as Come From Away, Hamilton, Mary Poppins, Phantom of the Opera, that I did both inside the Sydney Opera House and also outside on a stage we built on the water on Sydney Harbour. And for the last 2 years, I have been touring Tina, the Tina Turner musical, across Australia as the radio mic technician. As a radio mic tech, I'm responsible for the microphones on every single cast member, not only maintaining them, but figuring out the solutions to obstacles that we have that come up, including things like lead cast members needing to wear multiple microphones in very specific positions, or obstacles around costumes interfering with microphones. Because of this, the moment that I saw the video of Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, who play Elphaba and Glinda in this adaptation, talking about how important it was for them that they sang live on set, I immediately had a million questions about how they do this and where the hell they hid their microphones. For a disclaimer, I did not work on Wicked. The movie, I've not worked on the stage show either. I do not work in film. I do not work in TV. I am just somebody who is passionate about this industry and about sound in theatre. And I wanted to yap about the rabbit hole that I fell down about how they did the sound in this movie, because I know that the people who are subscribed to me, or the people who are in my Discord, or even just my friends and family in my real life, would be interested in the information that I found. All I'm doing today is yapping to you the findings that I found so that we can yap together further. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions if you are somebody who is actually in this field and who has a little bit more knowledge about what is going on. To truly appreciate the technical and creative choices that went into being able to pull off singing live on set, I think a yap about dialogue and musicals in film in general is required. The inspiration for this video was Wicked, and we will get back to Wicked, but we're going to take a little journey through some other musicals and some other productions to really appreciate what Wicked has pulled off. To put it very simply, and I do mean very simply because again, this is not my part of the industry, in a lot of film and TV they will use mics called boom mics. This is what I would say we civilians outside of film and TV would recognize most commonly as a bit of sound gear on a film set. A boom mic is a microphone on a long stick that somebody painstakingly holds over the top of a shot for as long as they need to, that can be aimed at the actors in the scene while remaining out of the shot of the camera. In more recent times, lav mics are being used more commonly as well as boom mics. These would typically just be hidden on the actor's costume in some way. When it comes to musicals though, the most common way that musicals have been done would be that actors in the scene would lip sync to pre-recorded studio recordings that they would go in and do. Think like a cast album kind of vibe. They would be lip syncing to that while on set. This allows for more control over the vocal performance that you end up getting, looser conditions on set. It also means that you can cast actors in roles who don't necessarily then have to actually sing the role as well or in the way that you would like. For example, in the 1964 film of My Fair Lady, Audrey Hepburn arrived on set to discover that they weren't actually planning on using her vocals. They were going to overdub them with vocals from a woman named Marnie Nixon. Marnie Nixon appeared on screen for the first time the following year in The Sound of Music, but by that point, people already knew her voice very well. Not only was she the voice, obviously, of Audrey Hepburn in this film, but she was also the voice of Marilyn Monroe in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. It is her high notes that we hear when you hear Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. For the younger generations, an example of this is the fact that Drew Seeley sang sang all of Troy Bolton's vocals in High School Musical 1. Zac Efron did the later films, but that one was not him, and I'm so incredibly sorry if this is how you found out that Zac Efron did not sing in High School Musical 1. Back to the My Fair Lady of it all is that while Audrey Hepburn was lip-syncing to a recording of Money Nixon, her co-star Rex Harrison, who actually played Henry Higgins, not only in this film, but on Broadway, which he got a Tony for, made it contractual that he had to sing on set, meaning the performance that he gave during the takes that we see on screen is actually what we hear as we're viewing it. In recent years, the idea of singing live in a movie like this is not something that is unheard of. The 2008 jukebox musical of Mamma Mia was done almost entirely in the method of lip-syncing to pre-recorded songs, except for one scene where Meryl Streep wanted to sing live. This is because the physicality of the scene meant that doing it in this method would make the performance look and sound more authentic. I couldn't find anywhere that listed exactly what scene that was, but my assumption, they said something about like climbing over a wall, which I don't think she actually climbs over a wall anywhere in the movie. My thought was that it was when she's actually singing Mamma Mia and she's like hanging over the edge of buildings and falls in through the roof, and that scene. I could be wrong, but that was my assumption. If anyone knows for sure, please let me know. Other than this one scene, what Mamma Mia and Wicked have in common is a man named Simon Hayes. After working as a runner in sets on London from the age of 16, at 18, Simon Hayes turned to the dark arts of sound, working his way through being an assistant to doing boom operation, and eventually mixing a pretty insane body of work. To list some of his credits include Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Nanny McPhee, Shaun of the Dead, 28 Weeks Later, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, Guardians of the Galaxy, the recent live-action Little Mermaid, Aladdin, and Cats, and as I just mentioned, Mamma Mia and Wicked. I'm going to leave a link in the description to Simon's website that I would absolutely recommend you check out if you are a sound nerd. On there is a section about articles that he has done, about the way that he's done sound on all the different movies he's done. The film that he did that paved the way to the Wicked that we're now seeing on screen, though, I would say is Les Mis. Like I said with Mamma Mia, by this point singing live on set wasn't something that was unheard of. It had been done, for example, on Cats as well, but what was unique about Les Mis was that rather than listening to, in in-ear monitors, a pre-recorded track, actors were accompanied by a live keyboard player. This meant that the actors were able to dictate the tempo of the performance instead of being dictated by the track. So they were accompanied on set by live keys, and then later orchestration was added in post-production. Wicked did a mix of these two things, and it flowed seamlessly between pre-recorded tracks that had like a driving beat behind them and a live keys player, so that the actors could be free to emotionally drive the scene and take pauses where they wanted to. There's obviously a whole bunch of technology that goes into making this possible that I wanted to, of course, yap about. First one that is obvious is the mics. Like I said before, it is not uncommon now for TV and film to utilize both boom mics and lav mics on performers. If you look at Simon Hayes' Instagram, he's posted a bunch of photos behind the scenes of Wicked, and in some of those photos you can see this in action. But when you're working on a set as mammoth and costumes as complicated as the ones that are on Wicked, I imagine that the microphone in-ear monitor situation would be quite complicated. The director for Wicked and Simon Hayes said that they wanted to capture the vocals live because it prioritizes human emotion. They said, "There's something within the breath and the cadence of the way that the lips are moving, the breath that you are hearing as someone's walking and singing live, that just sounds real because it is real. There's also something within the acoustic of the voice that matches the set we see because it is the real acoustic. It's not synthetic rebuilt digital acoustic." From lurking on Simon Hayes' Instagram, I also discovered that on Wicked they used DPA 4061s, which out of the limited range of DPAs that I have been able to use in theatre were also my personal favourite. I used them on Phantom of the Opera. But I also found on his Instagram some photos of the mic positions on cast members during the movie. Working in theatre, you discover pretty quickly that even a centimetre of difference in position can drastically change the sound of the mic, but also how much mics absolutely pick up every single bit of lace, costumes, hair, dust, good intentions that are thrown their way and interfere with the sound that you're trying to capture. In theatre, costume, wig, prosthetic, allowing, a great place to have a microphone that you'll see pretty often is on the forehead. This is because it actually sounds the most natural, and it also means that your sound source, aka the actor who's wearing the microphone, will still be captured no matter how they position themselves. For example, if I was to be wearing a mic right now on my shirt, on this side of my shirt, if I turn my head this way or that way, the sound would be inconsistent. Audiences in theatre are pretty forgiving of the fact that cast are wearing mics on their foreheads or also commonly on their cheek. In a film setting, having a microphone in the dead center of someone's forehead is not going to go down as well and is going to require that it is removed later on in post, which I imagine is expensive and incredibly time consuming and can't always be done done perfectly. I know from my little deep dive that I did through Simon Hayes' website that they did this on Cats, that they compromised how much of the actor's forehead that Simon could take up with microphone, that they could then figure out how they were going to cover it later with the cat hair that was added to everyone's bodies. Obviously, this wasn't going to work in Wicked though, so everything had to be put into costumes. Oh my god, my leg is dead. Oh my god. Oh shit. Anyway, we carry on. Elphaba's hat is a great position for a microphone, obviously in the scenes where she's wearing the hat. In almost every single theatre production that I have worked on, we have had hat mics in some capacity, which is usually because when a performer would put on a hat, it would interfere with their microphone that is on their forehead. It also offers the same consistency as the forehead position would with the moving off axis thing. In reference to the costumes like the ones on Glinda, which were often low cut in the front, they used 2 microphones at the highest points on either side of her costume. Other photos that Simon shared on Instagram show some of these hidden mic positions, and my favorite one was the one on Madame Morrible. In this photo, you can really see the attention to detail that they've taken in trying to color match the mic with the costume so that it blends in seamlessly, and also in keeping the costume away from the mic itself, which would have meant a huge amount of collaboration between the wardrobe department and sound. Side note that the costumes in this film deserve their own aggressive deep dive from somebody who knows more than I do about fashion and costume and storytelling, but another costume alteration that needed to be made was to everybody's shoes. Because of the kind of shots they were taking of Wicked, to just carpet the entire floor wasn't really possible. It would ruin a lot of the shots. So every single pair of shoes was specifically altered for the shoe itself to deaden the sound that it made. When we think about singing live, there is more than just microphones to consider. Playing the songs out loud would obviously interfere with the take that they are getting of the vocal performance, so cast all needed to be on in-ear monitors in these moments. Tiny side note is that Cynthia posted a video of her becoming green in the process of getting greened up for a day on set, and in that they showed her not taking out all of her ear piercings, which I assume is why they did this, but putting on a little prosthetic over her ear. And I wonder if that made it easier for them to hide her in-ear monitors within that prosthetic. It potentially could have made it harder, who knows. Simon Hayes said in an interview that it was a little bit of painting and costume and post-production removal to get rid of the in-ear monitors from actors. I had considered that all the actors would need to be on in-ear monitors, but what I didn't consider for some reason is that all of the crew would need to be on some kind of monitor or comms system that meant that they were also silent. The job of engineering a specific mix for not only every individual actor on stage who would have their own requirements and needs, but also for every single crew member and department would have been a mammoth job in itself. Speaking of the crew comms of it all, Simon Hayes said, "While we recorded their vocals without background music, the film crew still needed precise musical timing for camera moves, crane swings, and lighting cues. Relying on a cappella simply wasn't an option. To accommodate, every member of the crew involved in the creative process wore headphones where they could hear a balanced mix of the music and vocals, maintaining synchronization across the production. Over 100 crew members wore headphones or had music and singing fed into their team's crew comms to enable them to time their specific filmmaking movements to the music. This setup created a unique on-set experience. Remove your headphones and you'd hear Ariana and Cynthia singing a cappella, put them back on and you'd experience a fully orchestrated sound accompanying their live vocals. It was like shifting between unplugged and studio produced in real time. The Wicked live singing featurette gives a taste of this atmosphere, capturing moments of these two incredible actors singing Defying Gravity on set with no music in the background, then switching to the combined live vocal and music mix." We spoke about costume and wardrobe a little bit, which I think is a perfect example of how it's not only sound that needed to consider the live singing of it all in the production, but every other department as well. There are so many other things to consider when you think about the noise on set that would have needed to be eradicated. They incredibly built so much of the sets on this movie, and everything down to power had to be considered as a sound issue. On Instagram, Simon shared some photos and he said this: "John's vision was a live sung musical, and with that came a unique challenge. Every department had to work together to create a quiet set, even when it seemed almost impossible. Gaffer David Smith's challenge in particular was lighting such massive sets while keeping sound interference to a minimum. He had to position generators at each corner of the outdoor set, but this created a logistical hurdle. I needed the generators placed far enough away to avoid noise spill, and David immediately jumped into problem-solving mode. When I asked if he could place the generators at least 100 meters from the set's edge, his response was simple: no problem. This required additional trackway, rigging, and cable, but David's dedication to the project and his team's unwavering support meant that we could deliver John's vision, live sung vocals. It was a perfect example of teamwork, collaboration, and the spirit of Wicked. There are other things that they did on set around wind, because obviously so much of this movie requires wind. Like, Defying Gravity would look weird as hell without any wind. Defying Gravity in itself seemed like it would have been the most insane scene to film. Not only did Cynthia do all of her own stunts, but she sang it live, and they needed a lot of fake wind to help give the illusion that she was flying on a broomstick. The machines required to make wind like this are incredibly noisy, and the way that they got around this was by extending a huge amount of piping between the machine itself and the location that they were directing the wind at, which removed a lot of the noise. When you consider not only the cost of all of the microphones and in-ear monitors that were required, and when you consider the cost for, it seems, every single other department as well involved in getting this live singing to happen, you may wonder, why do it? It would have been so much easier and it would have saved them so much money to just lip sync to pre-recorded tracks. Every person in the production has already said that it was about making the performance as authentic as possible. But my speculation, as somebody who is involved in theatre, is also that there is a deep sense in pride in what we do in theatre, and that is why we're seeing this push for live singing in movie adaptations of iconic musicals. Shows like Cats, Les Mis, Wicked, these are all difficult shows that are notorious for being a hard fucking sing. With the exception of a couple of shows, musicals do not use lip syncing at all, and it would be insulting to assume that performers were not giving their live vocals on stage. There is a real sense of pride in every single department involved in theatre working as hard as they can and being as skilled as they are in order to bring what is often incredibly unrealistic storytelling to an audience in a way that impacts them so much that they have an emotional reaction, even if it is pretty unrealistic. For performers in these movies who have experience in theatre, I imagine it was incredibly important to them to honor the experience of singing these tracks live. I can understand why to a lot of people that reasoning wouldn't make a lot of sense or wouldn't seem worth it, but I completely understand why it would be, and it gives me, as somebody who works in theatre and who loves theatre so much, a deeper admiration for the film. And I don't think anybody can deny that the film they've pulled off is fucking good. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to me yap. Like I said, if you're somebody who has more knowledge and understanding in this area of the industry, please leave your yaps below. If you're somebody who's just into theatre and into backstage stuff, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. I make videos about the job that I do, the touring that I do, the industry that I work in, and 2025 is going to be a big year of content for the channel. I will leave the articles and the links to the websites and sources that I found all of the information that I gave you on this in the description. I'm going to go back to listening to Wicked on repeat, as everybody else currently is in my industry. Thank you for watching.